Record. Mic trigger. Button.
Hello folks, and welcome to this video which I'm recording for you all. And I kind of wanted to do just kind of take you behind the scenes of a new project which I'm working on with a guy called Jay, who we found through the Stepping Stones group. He came to help our group out. He's come to help our group out. And he's got a thing called Where Art Thou Art Group. I was just going over and checking his channel out. This isn't a collab with his channel, but we are doing collabs with his channel. As Ball and McNeil Productions and other things. But in actual fact, this is more about the other things that I'm on about. So I for years have tried to make people understand my imaginary friends, but after years of forcing to understand, I had a discussion with somebody in church about my imaginary friends, and they were like, oh, you should start a blog. And for years I tried to start a blog, and I realized, well, I'll use Facebook because Facebook's free. I don't need a domain or anything like that. So that's where I started it. And then I kind of wanted to move it on to a different platform, which is what we're going to be working on. And I spoke with Jay, and he's like, oh, well, you know, why don't you do this and that and the other? And so, yeah. And I also kind of, people ask, how do you get an imagination so deep as mine? Well, you don't. That's the thing. You've got it or you haven't, you know? It's like a lot of things. It's like love, hate, care, all that, you know? It's the same thing. But if you want to have an imagination, the first thing to do is to read more, or maybe listen to audiobooks, or listen to radio dramas, watch less TV and play less video games, I guess. Or if you're going to play a video game, play a text adventure. Those are the kind of, few things that I would also your imagination comes through with what experiences you have through the night. You know, dreams help, dream diaries. Oh, there's hundreds of things. But I don't know how my imagination came. I think because...
Are you ready for those?
Yeah.
Mic trigger. Mic lock. Finish recording. Button. Mic lock. Button. Is on. Double tap. Mic lock. Mic lock. Mic trigger. Mic lock. Button. Is on. Double tap.
So yeah, and I felt like the Imaginary Friends blog, it's been very close. We did a video tonight, and I thought I put this one out first, and I've recorded the other one before this, but I guess how the whole Imaginary Friends thing started It started very innocently at first, because when I was a kid, I don't think a lot of people understood me per se. I didn't have. I had friends like when you're a kid, when you're about between the ages of 3 and 6. Everybody wants to be your friend. It's great, It's brilliant. You have people who want to know you and all the rest of it, and that's all cool. You have people who want to be your friend, and that's all great. And then you have people who don't want to be your friend at all. But then you have the in-between. Now, of course, because I lived at school, it was far away from home, I didn't really have friends, near. My sister did. My sister was a very different person. She knew how to... She knew what was what. The 90s was a very different time. You were either friends, people kind of, I don't know, they wanted you to be their friend or whatever. It was kind of, I don't know, the 90s was a very cliquey era. I didn't know till now, but that's what it was. And so, my sister, who was a lot older than me, her friends, well, she had one friend that stuck with her, and of course that never happened with me, and until I was 8 years old. But that's kind of a story. When I was 8 years old, I still speak with her mummy, but I think we lost touch, and I got very close. It wasn't boyfriend and girlfriend, but it was... Anyway, you have to be careful with those sorts of people, because if they just walk off, or they just go into the mist, they're the sorts of people that become very toxic later on. But or they'll just be sort of, I don't know, they'll just go into the abyss. But anyway, I didn't know the problems I'd have till I was 15, but I had imaginary friends like everybody else, but they didn't disappear like everybody else. But then again, my life wasn't like everybody else. And it's not like a hard life. I'd never had a hard life. I had it probably a lot easier than a lot of people that I speak to that have Asperger's syndrome, or have, because the bumpy road, I guess, happened towards the start of senior school, I guess. And I knew that people were trying to normalise me through the 90s. But, I was bullied a couple of times for it. I didn't know how to deal with the real world. It didn't, occur to me. My imaginary friends was just an excuse a lot of the time for me, so I could talk to myself. I think that's how my dad's side of the family saw it. And my mum's side of the family learnt the very same, but it wasn't until I left school. I think it's still a ruse these days, but not. It has to be, I think it's not as bad as some things. It's not as bad as doing drugs, per se, or self-harm, but it's quite innocent, really. But it's also how I learn things too. If I've got an imaginary friend and I can sort of revise what I've learnt, then, but I have a whole host of imaginary friends. But what I've been trying to do for a long, long time, not so people can understand my imaginary friends, but how I can bring things into the real world and share, my imagination with other people. And then they can use it for whatever they wish. But it hasn't happened properly yet, and I am very excited for the next step. I know that things will happen. Unfortunately, my imaginary friends are born, live, then they die, just like normal human beings. I have had to learn what life and death is. It's important, life and death, because we all live and we all die, and we don't stay around forever. And we have people that piss other people off and so on, and you have toxic relationships, and it's a way to learn. It's a whole world that you just have to realize that, wow, this is a world that exists, but and I've had a lot of people that have said, oh, it's wow, you should be creating video games and stuff like that. But in fact, video games are not a door into your imagination at all. It's not that way at all. It's very different. You do have to have an imagination. If you have to have a very good imagination if you're going to go into things like video games or voice acting, and you have to know that you have to lose your mind a little bit. The guy who was acting SpongeBob explained how you have to have all these different characters in your head, and you have to play all these different characters. But he said it helps to have imaginary people, because you are constantly coming in and out of these characters, a bit like astral travel. But you're coming in and out of these characters all the time, and you have to remember that these people are other people. It's like you are trying to do other things, and that's why it's difficult for people to understand that headspace. With SpongeBob, you've got to squeeze your throat a lot. You also have to have a very, very good vocal range. But then again, there is you have to go around and you have to listen to voices and accents and all the rest of it. For video game creation, again, you've got to have a very good imagination to know what you want out of your character to be able to create it and all the rest of it. The guy who created Lara Croft was from Core Design. He was very upset to hear that they were trying to turn Lara Croft into a sex symbol, which technically I would personally find that quite sad, that you would be trying to do that. I mean, for me, she had quite an attractive voice. When that kind of visualize the actual character and what Lara could do. But no, people wanted to see what Lara was like properly. I mean, if you saw the descriptions of Lara Croft, you would be spoiled. There's lots of rumors and conspiracies that go around that, but technically, I mean, there is so much detail now to characters in video games, but back then there was so much that they had to do to create. I mean, you still have to know like creativity and so on and so forth. But there's only one video game that I lean on to do some of my research, which is Grand Theft Auto Vice City. It's very political heavy, but it's very leans towards a little bit of my imagination, but also I always find something new with that. And the Grand Theft Auto franchise, but again, it's only a little slice of it. I always have to go to other things to try and find what, there's a whole lot of research you have to do in order to find new things for the imaginary friends all the time. I remember one assessor saying, "Oh, someone thought you might have created Sims." Well, I had a little look at Sims, and unfortunately, Sims, yeah, it lets you create stuff, but unfortunately, as far as it goes, there's a stop point. Minecraft's the same. Minecraft lets you do stuff to a certain point, and then that's it. And there's always a dead end. Whereas I like to do a bit more, and yeah. So anyway, tune into my imaginary friends conversation. It went a bit wacky. We'll try to keep it normal-ish, but it didn't go that way, unfortunately. So yeah.
Mic trigger. Mic lock. Finish recording.